In some of his writings and lectures, Sam Harris, the author of The End of Faith and Letter to a Christian Nation, he talks about the validity of meditative practice. He gave a presentation outlining that at the, I think it was the Beyond Belief Enlightenment 2.0 conference last year, 2007, and he's been criticised, I think, quite a bit certainly by some members of the atheist community, the atheist community, for addressing these issues to do with alternative states of consciousness, meditation, contemplative practices of various sorts. I think it's quite useful in many ways that he is thinking and talking about this, or at least that somebody is, but there are some problems with it. The advantages, I think, of addressing that is that, well, it does acknowledge that these states exist, and it's pretty well documented in all cultures that people do have strange sorts of experiences, or that there are disciplines, well-established disciplines, which are intended to cultivate a certain way of being, way of perceiving the world. And so it is good that he acknowledges that. The criticism, I think, from the atheist community comes from the fact of that close association between contemplative practice like meditation and its embedding within religious practices, particularly theological, theist practices, which either demand belief in certain deities or certain principles and practices and cosmologies for which there is little evidence, if any evidence at all, or because it smacks of a kind of New Age, non-scientific, non-empirical way of looking at the world. So those criticisms, I think, are valid, but at the same time, as I say, I think it is the mere fact that the practices and experiences emerging from those practices are so widespread means that it's a good thing that someone from the atheist community is looking at those things. Apart from anything else, atheism from the outside, at least, can seem pretty sterile and barren, and in many ways in a state of sort of self-denial about the existence of those sort of things. So those things are good. The criticism I would have, and it's not really a criticism, it's more of an observation, is that certainly within most religious traditions, Buddhism being the archetypal example, but Christian traditions and Islamic traditions and so on, these states of consciousness, divine union in Christianity, Advaita in non-Western traditions, Hinduism and so on, these states are very, very closely annealed to the wider cosmology. In the Christian tradition, for example, divine union, that feeling of the absolute union of being that one has when engaged in mystical practices, that's not some sort of arbitrary union. That's union with the Godhead. That's union with the Creator of the universe. It's union with the designer of all this. It's union with the creator and collector of your soul, and so on. So it has a wider implication. It's a practice and a mindset, a state of consciousness, which is completely copacetic with, as I say, the wider cosmology, the rest of the belief system. Without the belief system, without the religious framework around it, it can be tempting to regard meditation as just a kind of pastime, really. Interesting, undoubtedly, perhaps self-transforming in some way. But ultimately, it's not a practice which would connect one to larger and more all-embracing understandings. You don't meditate, for example, in order to be able to connect to some sort of grand unification theory of physics, I assume. You don't meditate in order to be able to have first-hand experience of quantum fluctuation. You don't meditate in order to be able to personally experience the singularity prior to the Big Bang. At least that's not how it's conceptualized. Perhaps it should be conceptualized that, but it's certainly not. So without the religious framework, it can look a bit like masturbation, actually. So that would be my concern about meditation in an